Alright, welcome back. We are going to be looking at the released items from 2018 as waiting for some technology to do what I want it to do. I'm going to create a split screen again. Oh man, that looks good. Nope. I'm going to create a split screen again. And therefore we can look at the sources on one side and the questions on the other. Not sure if we're going to get through all of them because of my voice and because of the time factor here. But we are going to try to get through as many as we can and see where we go. Alright. So, always read the question first. The diagram identifies features commonly associated with. So before I look at the diagram, I'm going to consider how is communism different than liberalism? What are some features that I would expect to see with communism and not with liberalism? And then contrast those two ideas with socialism and fascism. This is a question we must be prepared to look at because the course is about ideologies, and these are four of the principal ideologies we study. Then we look back and it says features of an ideology, and as soon as I see extreme nationalism, I know the answer is fascism. This is a recall question where you need to know features of different ideologies. This is a have I prepared for the exam kind of question. Number two, in context, which of the following features would appropriately replace the question mark? So we just need another feature of a fascist system. Classless society is Marxism, not fascism, so that's not it. Single party government, of course. Hitler didn't allow other parties to exist with him once he took control of the Reichstag. Nationalization of industry, no, that's nationalization is communism, right? Command economy. This is still has capitalism. Still says private ownership right there. Independent judiciary. He's not going to let the judges question him. So the answer has to be B. Number three. Which of the following challenges facing democracies is highlighted by the cartoon? So you look at the cartoon. But you know what? I'm going to probably consider what are the options? What are my possibilities? How to allow those with opposing ideological viewpoints to enjoy the freedom of mobility. So if it's going to be A, it has to be about these people moving around, right? How to encourage citizens to peacefully participate. So B is like about voting. B might be about running for office. That's different than A. You have to contrast the answers. C, how to respond to security threats. So there's got to be some kind of nuance within the cartoon that shows a security threat. And at one side we have the pull to restrict freedom, but we want to make sure we don't restrict personal liberties even when there's a security threat. D, how to implement majority rule while protecting minority rights. Nice thing about these practice questions is if there's language on them like majority rule and minority rights that you don't understand, look them up. All right, so question three. Okay, we've got the power to go after terrorists. There's only one that talks about security threats, and it's C. Where do you think they're hiding? Behind our charter rights and freedoms. So it's this idea that because we're protecting liberties, we're not really responding to security threats to the full extent that we could. C's my answer. Central message of the cartoon is that the authorities are questioning the use of force, that the legislation that guarantees liberties may actually threaten them. That seems to pull with C, doesn't it, from the previous one. Ability to identify domestic security issues is increasing. Well, they seem like they're struggling, not getting better at it. Tactics used by terrorists have limited success. Well, the source isn't really focused on how much success the terrorists are having. It's focused on the difficulty that the police are having because of the charter. B's my answer. The cartoon implies that in the interest of national security, the police would need to collaborate with the armed forces, receive increased resources, use undemocratic practices, be more closely monitored. So the whole theme of question 3 and 4 is this struggle between the charter and the ability of police to respond to terrorism. And that theme continues with the answer, which is C. So 3, 4, and 5 all look at that theme of the course, freedom versus control, and specifically within Canada between our freedoms, our individual rights, our collective rights existing under the charter, and the need to try to respond to terrorism threats. good little set. And that jumped too far. There we go. Oh, nice color swords. Which of the following values is most directly highlighted in the excerpts? So are they looking at competition? So competition, I would expect to see like capitalism. I'd expect to see like two suppliers trying to compete for your business, or maybe political competition, right? Collective rights. So I'm thinking francophones, anglophones, First Nations, Inuit, Métis. Political equality. You know, are we politically equal? Do we have equal voices? Individual accountability. So I look at it and I can see that right here, votes to women. Are they politically equal? See, right? Right there, right there. At the time, the actions of the women in excerpt 2. So they are protesting outside the White House. They get arrested. They go on a hunger strike. They're conservative, reactionary. Conservative, they like the status quo. No, they're pushing for change. It's not conservative. Reactionary, they're using violence to recreate the old order. No, they want change. Are they moderates? Did everybody agree with this? Or are they using what is being seen by the police as violence, right? To get the point across. If they were moderate, they wouldn't have to be petitioning. If they were moderate, then the majority of people would agree with them. Because they are using violence, maybe inflicted upon themselves, but it still is violence. And because they're looking for, in the very least, progressive change, it's the best answer is D. If progressive was up here, I might make the argument that progressive is a better answer because they're not really being that violent. But progressive is not an answer, so in the light of those 4 answers, radical is the best answer. So you need to know your spectrum. Number 8, for which of the following research questions? So these questions always, I slow down on them because they're a little less clear to me. For which of the following research questions would the excerpts be most effectively used as a resource? So it's basically saying, what is a common question that they're all kind of answering? So we have that one. We had the previous one, so they're looking at the rights to vote for women. Okay. How have minority rights been protected? How has the suffragette movement altered democratic practices? Well, it is about suffragettes. How has industrialization influenced the development of liberalism? It's not really about economics, right? And how have liberal democracies reacted to undemocratic political movements? It's not an undemocratic movement. They're not saying like, hey, we want a dictatorship. They're saying we want more democracy, not less. So it's not C or D. How have minority rights been protected? Or how has the suffragette movement altered democratic practices? Well, we're not seeing government protecting them, although it leads to the protection of women. Women are not a minority population-wise, but they are a minority when it fits to the idea of being marginalized. But they definitely do talk about the suffragette movement, both of them, right? And how it's going to change who gets the vote. So, B is my answer. According to details in the map, I love maps, in which of the following continents does the distribution of wealth most directly reflect collectivist values? So you have to understand what are collectivist values. People are mostly equal, right? So looking at the map, less than 30%, most equality, greater than 56% least equality. The Gini index measures the degree of difference in wealth. So we want to find somewhere that is like tan colored. So do we see the majority of tan in Asia? I see a whole bunch of different colors in Asia. Some tan, some not so tan. In Africa, Africa's got a lot of no data. That's not great. Then we got some green and tan. In Europe, Europe's got a lot of tan. Look at that. I think Europe's my answer. North America, one of each. So let's go with Europe and say I can read a map. 10. The countries shown on the map with less than 36% on the Gini most likely share which of the following characteristics? Laissez-faire, extensive social programs, authoritarian government, and high states of military spending. Well, being that I know Europe a little bit contaminates us, would I expect to see more equality with A? We typically associate laissez-faire with unlocking inequality, not equality. Authoritarian governments in Europe, I look at the ones in that tan color. We don't have an authoritarian government in the UK or in France, in Germany today. So I'm going to disqualify that. High rates of military spending. Many of those countries do spend a lot on military, but how is that going to make people more equal? Extensive social programs would make people more equal. Redistribution of wealth from those who have wealth to those who need wealth. Extensive social programs, things like social welfare, would create more equality. B is my answer. Associating the idea of B with the idea of equality made this question a lot easier for me. Number 11. To determine the standard of living in each country, which of the following additional pieces of information would be most helpful? Standard of living. Average level of literacy. Well, you could be very literate and still have a low standard of living. Average income. Income probably going to impact standard of living. So if you have a low income, your standard of living is probably going to be low. And now it should, average annual income relative to what? To the cost of living in the country would be a better descriptor. But average annual income will have a correlation with the standard of living. Inflation rate, interest rates, they all could help, but the one that is most helpful would be the average income, because that should overlap with your standard of living. How much money you're bringing in, average annual income, is one of the key measurements on what is your standard of living. Question 12 and 13. Taken together, the messages on the placards most clearly reflect Marx, Locke, Hitler, or Mill. John Stuart Mill, harm principle. Hitler, I think we know Hitler. Locke, democracy good. Karl Marx, communism. Unite as one, spread the wealth, the workers must rise up. Karl Marx. Simple recall. You need your cast of characters and your ideologies. In the context of the other placards, which of the following messages would be added? So we've already seen other questions like this on this set, where it's like, oh, let's add another thing to the list. So it's like, what do we see? We see communist ideas. Which one of these is also a communist idea? Together we can create a classless society, right? That's the goal of Marxism. Vote today to ensure political equality. Well, the word equality is a draw there, but political equality isn't necessarily what they're going for. They're looking for a dictatorship, a proletariat, to create a one-party or one class, right? A one-party state, which will create a one class within the state and lead to a classlessness. Preserve private property. They want the opposite of that. Profit at all costs. They want the opposite of that. A and B are horrible answers. If you pick A and B, you're totally confused as to what Marxism is. So, I don't know what to say. Go back and relearn Karl Marx. Number 14. In context, which of the following statements from the excerpt most directly indicates that the people of the Iroquois Confederacy had both civil liberties but also civic duties? So, we just need a statement that says you have freedom, but you also have a responsibility. I like that. Justice through the balancing of rights and obligations. What? How is that not the answer? You have rights. That's another liberty. It means rights, duties, obligations. Like, I'm sorry, but number 14, only 65.2% of the province got that. So, 34.8% of the province doesn't associate the word liberty with right or duty with obligation. That's a language question. That's a language question, my friends. And I didn't even have to read the source. It's a long source. But I'm looking for civil liberties. Justice through the balancing of rights. Boom, that matches up. Duties and obligations. Wow. Number 15. For which of the following research questions could the information in the excerpt be most directly used? What process was used to select the leadership of each clan? Interesting. What consequences were given to persons who violated Confederacy laws? How frequently did clan chiefs assemble to discuss shared issues? How did member nations of the Confederacy resolve issues? So I'm going to have to contrast these four things, right? If I had a paper copy, I'd be writing all over it. What process was used to select leadership? And you know what? If I can't hold four things in my mind at once, I might have to go back a few times here. What consequences were given to persons who violated Confederacy laws? So the A and B are different. A is how do we select our leader? B is how do we punish those who violate our laws? I'm going to reword these so that it makes better sense to me. So A, we select our leader. B, how do we punish those who break our laws? C, how frequently did chiefs assemble? So it's not really a what happens, but a how often do we do this? So if that's what the information's about, is like every 4 years, every 8 years, this kind of stuff, then that's my answer. How did member nations of the Confederacy resolve issues? So. So this sentence, chairman who oversaw the discussion, which continued until a unanimous decision was reached, says D. If no consensus could be achieved, each tribe was free to follow an independent course on the matter. D, right? It's talking about how to resolve issues. It's not talking about how often. I skimmed it. I don't see anything like every 4 years or something. And it doesn't talk about, hey, this is how we selected our guy or a girl. This is how we selected our person or a rep. Or, hey, this is how we punish people. It's not about those things. I don't see any pull to that, so it's got to be D. Number 16. How would a supporter of a dictatorship most likely respond to the Iroquois Confederacy decision making? Well, they don't like it because it's not a decision made by one. Disapproval, because achieving consensus is irrelevant. A dictator says, "What? I need a consensus among my followers. They're all less capable than I am. I'll just make up the rules because I'm the most capable." So yeah, A. 17. Which of the following actions most clearly reflects the values of the writer? Well, even if you've never heard of John Acton before, don't worry about that. It's just matching. It's almost always just matching, right? Reading, comp, and matching. A radical political party is outlawed after it threatens an MP. A human rights commission is established to investigate allegations of discrimination. A and B are very different. C, a British House of Commons committee recommends a curfew. So C, there's more control. A, there's more control. B, there's more freedom. D, the American government enacts the USA Patriot Act. So that's more control too. So the most certain test by which we judge whether a country is really free is the amount of security enjoyed by minorities. Highlight minorities, right? So is that not B? A human rights commission is established to allegations of discrimination. So, are people being discriminated against? And also all the other ones kind of push in the same direction, control over freedom. B is the only one that is speaking on behalf of freedom, and so is John Acton. Which of the following characteristics of democracy is most clearly represented by the idea presented in the quotation? Secret ballot, majority rule, citizen equality. Yeah, it's equality, right? That the amount of security enjoyed by minorities. It's the minorities need to have the same security as others. Number 19. The increased support for the Nazis illustrated in graph 2 most likely came from the voters who previously supported who? Well, so the Nazis go up. These guys, not a huge jump here. Communists became communists. Social Democrats either held or probably went to their neighbor. Centralists, they imploded. And nationalist parties, they also lost a lot of numbers, right? So This number goes up by 35%. This one goes down by 16%. This one goes down by like 14-ish percent. They probably shifted this way. So centralist nationalist People's Party. D is my answer. The two graphs indicate that between the two elections, the German electorate began to participate in increasing numbers. We don't know how many people voted. We can't say it's A. Reduces support for moderates. Here's your moderates. There's less support. B is my answer. Supporter of Adam Smith. Who's that? Would most likely view the events described in Diary 2 as an example of media manipulation. Smith is about capitalism. He doesn't really talk about the media, right? An expected result of class struggle. That's language I would expect to hear with Marx, not Smith. A natural function of business cycle. That sounds like Smith. A condition necessary to create a unified state. The only one that makes any sense language-wise with Smith is C. Now I'm going to actually read it. What was wrong? The bank has taken our house and our car, and our family business is bankrupt. Father stock market shares are now worthless. People say it is our own fault for being so greedy. So it's 1930, it's the stock market crash. It's a year after the crash. But Smith is going to say this is boom bust cycle. It's just natural. C is my answer. Diary 4. Why do we have a Diary 1 and a Diary 3 if we're not doing anything with them yet? Diary 4 provides opposing views on the extent to which taxation rates set by government should reflect income level. Okay, taxation rates should reflect, okay, so should we have progressive taxation or should we have flat tax? Alright, kind of write that next to it. The common good should be ensured through government intervention. A is very much more specific than B. Key industries should be nationalized. You know, A and C are both talking about new policies, but totally different policies. Businesses should be exempt from paying EIC, employment insurance premiums. So very, very much different things. Same skill we do all the time. Let's go hunt for the answer. The hunt's on. Finally, some help from the government. Our new president introduced job creation and social assistance programs. Sure doesn't seem to be talking about C or A or D. That social assistance programs makes me think it's B. I will be leaving tomorrow with some of my friends to help plant trees in the Tennessee Valley. Some people are upset with these programs because they believe that they are costly and will make Americans lazy and too dependent on the government. They believe that receiving aid kills a person's spirit. But I'd argue with good spirit if there are no jobs and you have nothing to eat. Horrible accent. It's my cold. I'm not doing an accent. Accents are inappropriate. I wouldn't do that. No, I have a cold. The cold is coming out. Is it not B? Like, no, you know what? 21% of people. That's some horrible math. 31% of people pick something other than the right answer, which is B. But as soon as it says social assistance programs, and then it talks about, you know, some people like them, he likes them, or she likes them, and other people don't like them because you might become dependent. The answer is B, my friends. Which of the four diaries refers to an example of political participation? Well, not 4, and it wasn't 2, so it's either 1 or 3. So I'm going to read the shorter one of them. They're both a little bit long, so I'm going to read 1. And if it ain't 1, then it's 3. That's my logic here. Father and I picked up our new Model T Ford today. Father's so pleased with how much things have changed since the end of the Great War. Jobs are plentiful with decent wages. Our hard work, willingness to take a few risks and provide us a comfortable lifestyle. Father was able to purchase our new car and buy shares. He's buying some shares. He's not participating politically. I am going to probably look at 3, but I think the answer's got to be there. It's going to talk about voting or something, right? Father and I will be leaving mother and my sisters to look for work. We have joined millions of other unemployed Americans. Only the breadlines are keeping us from starving. It is no better in the countryside. Farmers are receiving little for the crops and are being forced off the land. People are desperately hoping for the government to do something. Hasn't been anything yet. In the streets, people are protesting, waving signs and slogans such as, "In President Hoover we trusted, now we're busted." So it didn't talk about voting, which I thought it would, but it talks about the people protesting, participating in politics in that manner, and that's why it's the answer. I like it that it wasn't as simple as voting. That would have been too simple. Oh man, we're still using these diaries. Which of the following statements provides an example of collectivism? Job creation and social assistance, that's collective responsibility, that's common good, that's collectivism. D, right? Because that's why we picked it up here as the common good for B. If 22 is B, then 24 is D. Yeehaw. Taken together, the diary entries suggest that capitalism provides for greater efficiency, increases opportunity, results in political economic instability. Good times and bad times. We got some good times here. We got some bad times down here. That's economic instability. 25 is C. 25's got to be C then. 25's got to be C. 26. Oh, thank goodness. Nothing like another long source. Which of the following statements from source 1 most clearly illustrates the socialist aspect? Well, I know what socialism is. I might not have to read the source. Not that I'm telling you not to read the sources, but it sure is good feeling if you know the answer, and then you just got to go and prove that you're right. Man, that voice is getting bad. Whew. Which of the following statements illustrates the socialist aspect? Openly displayed loaded shotguns. How is that socialist? A free child's breakfast program. How is that not socialist? Come on. 26B, 61% got it right. I don't know what to say. Aggressive public image, violent tactics. Violent tactics could be seen as radical. Openly displayed loaded shotguns. I don't know. Reactionary, ultra-conservative, Second Amendment, something. But the only thing that says socialist, a free child's breakfast program. Please tell me you got that one. 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 27. J. Edgar Hoover's Declaration in source 1. Demonstrates that the tactics used by the Black Panthers were considered by the government to be most similar to methods used by labor movement to gain benefits for members, the struggle for suffragettes, the adoption of ultra-nationalist practices, terrorists. I'm gonna guess that Hoover, working for the FBI, and he's not gonna like the violent Black Panther practices. So he's going to call them like terrorists and extremists. I'm going to find the answer, but it's going to be D. Black Panther Party for self-defense was created in '66 to combat police brutality. Hoover's Declaration, so we got to look for that within the source, right? I'm scanning it and I see the declaration right at the end. In '68, FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover declared the Black Panthers were, here's the answer coming up, the greatest threat to the internal security of the United States. So there you go. A threat to security. Could be C, could be D. They're both security threats. But C would be a security threat coming from government down, right? It's D. Better be D. Yeah, it's D. A supporter of the values of modern liberalism, freedom through government, would view the actions of the protesters. Okay. as evidence that citizens control the media, have been given too much influence, are free to publicly express their opposition. Yeah. Yeah, so if you value modern liberalism, you value the right for people to protest. The only answer there that supports their protest is C. So it's got to be C. And you know what? Almost everybody got that one, like 81%. So good job. Taken together, both sources most clearly demonstrate that some citizens in a democracy, okay, so violent, protesting, those are the only sources. Willingly use violence, yeah, we see that there. Voluntarily submit, authority granted. Well, nobody's submitting. Challenge the power of government in order to promote, well, they are challenging government, but are they wanting to promote egalitarianism? Everyone's equal politically, economically. That's more communism, I would say. I don't think it's, I just looked at the key and I was wrong. Conform the ideological views. So I might have gotten this one wrong. I might have gone A and it's C. I apologize. I looked down at the answer key and I'm like, holy smokes. I am taking this test a little too quickly. A little too flip sometimes. I gotta slow down. I gotta think about things. Challenge the power of the government in order to promote egalitarianism. See, I always think of egalitarianism as an economic measure, not as one about social and political equality. And I obviously thought wrong. Because, they're not trying to overthrow the government. Come on, McBride. I was going to pick A. They're not trying to overthrow the government. They're just trying to get more rights, more equal rights, more civil rights for African Americans. Dude, had I read A and said the overthrow the government one, I wouldn't have been picking A. C is definitely the better answer. Man, wake up, wake up, wake up. See, mid-test, you get tired. You might need a break. Take a little break. Have some water. Maybe go to the bathroom. Maybe have a snack. Because you could make some mistakes. I just made a mistake because I was in a rush and I wasn't paying attention. Kind of like Edmonton Oilers, you know. Some nights their lights on, and then suddenly they make mistakes because they start taking things for granted. I'm going to slow down. How many questions we got? 57. I'm not going to get through this. How many more should we do? I'll do a few more and then we'll split it there. We're past the halfway point, but I feel like I got some momentum now. I'm going to do a couple more because I just got the last one wrong. I need redemption. I need some redemption. And I know this one's about classic liberalism. I like my chances. Whew. Let's get this one right. A supporter of classic liberalism, Adam Smith, right, would most likely respond to speaker's opinion with agreement because protection of the environment is more important than pursuit of wealth. That does not sound like Adam Smith. Disagreement because resources should be owned and developed by the government. That's not Smith either. He wants resources owned by the people, by corporations. Disagreement because individuals should be free to maximize their profit. That sounds like Smith. Agreement because the government has a responsibility to protect domestic industry. No. Adam Smith wasn't in favor of tariffs. He would want global, trade liberalization, right? And, it's not talking about tariffs. It's talking about the environment. So, it's got to be C. Which of the following actions would the speaker most strongly support? So not from Smith's perspective now, it's from the speaker's. Introducing legislation to limit economic activities. So if the speaker's pro-environment, the answer is A. Promoting the Canadian Arctic to foreign companies to stimulate growth. If they're pro-economy, the answer is B. Reducing the taxes that resource companies must pay. If they're pro-economy, the answer is C. Encouraging members of the Canadian Arctic communities relocate to areas where traditional economic practices can continue. That's a totally third option, isn't it? I've lived in the Canadian Arctic my entire life. Recently, oil and gas companies have increased their activity by drilling oil and constructing new pipelines. They don't seem to care about the environment or to my family's traditional way of life. The government must intervene to regulate the actions. So, they don't care about the environment. We need more environment protection. A is my answer. A also addresses the traditional way of life answer too. So that'll help maintain the environment, but it'll also help to ensure traditional lifestyles are able to continue. I'm going to end it there because my voice is really fading, and we'll have to do the second half another day. So hopefully somebody at some point watches this. I think my other ones I might have 10 viewers. So that warms the heart right there. That makes me feel like I'm doing good work. I'm being recognized.